The Winter Soldier. Remember the hit movie Captain America Winter Soldier? It was actually based on the greatest plot twist in comic book history. The whole premise is centered around the scenario: what if your best friend, the one you've mourned for decades, suddenly shows up alive, except now he's an international assassin with a robot arm? That's the chaos Marvel dropped on Captain America fans in 2005 when Ed Brubaker relaunched Captain America and introduced the Winter Soldier. From page one, the series plays out like a spy movie with covert ops, shadowy killings, shady businessmen, and Nick Fury acting like the guy who knows spoilers but refuses to share them. We all know he's that guy. Every breadcrumb Steve Rogers follows, flashbacks of Bucky, dossiers nobody should be reading, assassinations with eerily familiar tactics, pulls him closer to a truth he's not ready to face. Well, I wasn't ready either. The mask finally comes off when Steve learns the Winter Soldier is actually, you guessed it, James Bucky Barnes, his World War II partner who was supposed to have died young. Instead, Bucky was scooped up by the Soviets, patched together with a metal arm, frozen like an evil hot pocket between missions, and brainwashed into being their perfect weapon. What really gets me is how personal it gets. Cap's greatest guilt suddenly isn't buried in the past. It's alive, dangerous, and standing right in front of him. What makes me think the twist works is because it's built with care. Brubaker layers the spy thriller vibes with real emotional weight, so Bucky's return feels heartbreaking instead of cheap. On top of that, the reveal gives Marvel a new kind of character, a tragic anti-hero who carries guilt, memory, and desperate need for redemption. And honestly, it reshaped superhero comics for years to come. Watchmen. What if the smartest guy in the room wasn't planning to save the world with science or speeches, but with the biggest war crime cosplay ever pulled off? That's the core twist of Watchmen, and it still makes people argue that comic shops decades later. Hell, I was just talking about it with a friend last night. It starts with a mystery that drives society insane, anxious, and divided. The comedian's dead, Rorschach snoops around like Gotham's angriest raccoon, and the trail eventually drags the old heroes together. Dr. Manhattan's floating off into space, Silk Spectre and Night Owl stumble through midlife crises, but all the breadcrumbs point to one man, Adrian Veidt, aka Ozymandias. He's rich, polished, world's smartest human vibes, basically the guy you trust to run a TED Talk and your retirement fund. And that's exactly why the twist hits so hard. Adrian didn't just connect the dots, he rewrote the whole puzzle. For years, he secretly grew a giant psychic squid monster and teleported it to New York, killing millions instantly. Why a squid? I don't know, maybe that's his favorite sea animal. The horror wasn't random. It was staged to look like an alien invasion, hoping humanity would stop pointing nukes at each other and unite against a fake threat. The wild part? It actually worked. The world edges towards peace, but only because of a massacre on an unthinkable scale. But it doesn't end there. Here comes the gut punch. Rorschach refuses to play along with the cover-up, so Adrian lets him die for the greater good. Suddenly, the moral math of the book isn't about right or wrong, it's about which nightmare are you willing to accept. That's the real sting. Nobody leaves clean. What do you think? Do you support Adrian in this scenario? Superior Spider-Man. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you're Spider-Man, except it's not you, it's Dr. Octopus driving your body like it's a stolen Uber. That's the setup for one of Marvel's wildest twists. In The Amazing Spider-Man number 698 to 700, Dan Slott takes Otto Octavius, whose health is falling apart faster than an old iPhone battery, and gives him one last desperate plan: swap minds with Peter Parker. Suddenly, Peter's stuck in Otto's failing body while Otto's swinging around New York with Spidey powers and a brand new lease on life. Peter spends those issues scrambling for survival, trying to outsmart his own genius enemy, while his body literally shuts down around him. He calls in favors, relies on old memories, and uses every ounce of his brain just to claw back what's his. I mean, look at this. Man is literally begging God for help. This is heartbreaking for a Spidey fan like me, but by issue 700, it's game over. Peter's mind fades, Otto outlives him, and for the first time in comics history, Spider-Man isn't Peter Parker anymore. He's Doc Ock, and he declares himself the superior Spider-Man. The twist stings me to the core because of how personal it feels. It's not an alien clone or some magic reset. It's Peter's worst enemy taking his place, complete with Peter's memories and all the guilt that comes with them. On top of that, Otto actually tries to live up to the role, which means we as readers get the bizarre mix of a megalomaniac trying to be noble. It shook fans to their core, flipped Spider-Man's identity on its head, and forced the question, what really makes someone a hero? Dark Phoenix. The X-Men Dark Phoenix movie might be mid, but the original version that it's based on is legendary. It starts when Jean Grey comes back from a space mission carrying the Phoenix Force, a cosmic power-up that basically makes her a walking infinity cheat code. At first, it's dazzling. She's stronger, faster, untouchable. Everyone's happy because they know she can defeat enemies in seconds, which is really good for them. But the X-Men soon realize it's not just an upgrade, it's temptation in disguise. That's when the Hellfire Club enters, with Mastermind messing with her mind and dangling illusions that blur who Jean even is anymore. The slow slide kicks into gear across Uncanny X-Men number 129 to 134. Each wrong step adds weight until the inevitable crash in issue number 135. Jean snaps, announces herself as Dark Phoenix, and rockets off into space. What's worse is she doesn't just flex her power. She consumes a star, wiping out an entire civilization like it's a snack gone wrong. Suddenly, the heart of the X-Men is also their greatest threat. The fallout turns cosmic fast. The Shi'ar put her on trial for genocide, and the whole thing plays out like a mix of courtroom drama and what I like to call Shakespearean tragedy. So then, Jean, finally seeing what she's become, makes the ultimate choice in Uncanny X-Men number 137. Ending her life before the Phoenix can claim more victories. That sacrifice makes the saga unforgettable. It's intimate, heartbreak tied to interstellar stakes, a story about power, responsibility, and how even the brightest hero could burn too hot and become the fire itself. Tara. Imagine your best friend showing up all shy and clumsy, winning everyone over, and then months later you find out she was secretly screen recording the group chat for your worst enemy. That's basically the Tara plot twist in the Judas Contract. She shows up acting like the nervous new kid, sweet, insecure, with powers that literally move mountains. The Teen Titans buy it. She jokes around, she trains with them, and Beast Boy even catches feelings hard enough to forget common sense. Honestly, I don't blame him. We've all been there before. For a while, it feels like she's really one of them. But lurking in the background is Deathstroke, the mercenary with perfect aim and an even better contract. He's out to take the Titans down. And Tara? Well, she's not his target, she's his inside woman. Who would have thought? When the truth comes out, it's brutal. Every oops, I'm just nervous moment was staged. Every laugh, every trust-building confession, it was all part of her act. She wasn't their shy little sister. She was feeding intel to Deathstroke and leading the team straight into traps. For Beast Boy, it's crushing. His first real shot at love turns into a ultimate backstab. The fallout is massive. Nightwing steps up as a solo hero, and the Titans barely survive the ambush. Thank God, I guess? Tara, though, doesn't walk away. She actually dies in the chaos, buried under rubble, leaving everyone with the worst kind of closure. Betrayal that can't be fixed. That's why this twist stings. It wasn't just a villain move, it was a family fracture. So guys, watch out if your shy friend's name starts with a T. Kraven's Last Hunt. Imagine picking up a Spider-Man comic and instead of quips and web slinging, you find a funeral. Except the guy in the coffin isn't Uncle Ben, it's Spider-Man himself, buried alive by Kraven the Hunter. That's the chilling hook of Kraven's Last Hunt in 1987, a story that feels more gothic horror play than a superhero romp. Kraven, who's basically Russian Batman with a fur coat, decides that after beating every animal on Earth, the only prey left is to conquer Spider-Man. But winning isn't enough. He wants to be Spider-Man. So, he tranquilizes Peter, shoots him, and literally buries him 6 feet under. Then he puts up the Spider-Man costume and patrols New York like some terrifying knockoff action figure. Instead of jokes, the Spider-Man dishes out brutal street justice, leaving criminals confused and readers unsettled. Meanwhile, Peter's trapped underground, battling nightmares and suffocating panic until he claws his way back to life in what I think is one of the most iconic Rebirth scenes Marvel ever published. But here's the twist. When Peter finally confronts Kraven, there's no big boss fight like we all expected. Because Kraven has already won in his mind by proving he could be the better Spider-Man. but wearing someone else's soul doesn't fill the hole inside him. So in the end, he walks away, puts down his rifle, and ends his own life. Equal parts haunting and poetic, Kraven isn't just scary, he's tragic. The Hunter proved his point, but in doing so, he destroyed himself. That was wild. Court of Owls. If you think Gotham is just a crime-ridden mess, then prepare for a crazy twist that'll leave your mind boggled. It starts quietly, with strange murders, creepy nursery rhymes, and whispers of a shadowy group no one takes seriously. Bruce, ever the world's greatest detective, digs deeper and finds a trail of hidden chambers, old masks, and records to point to something ancient living under Gotham's skin. By Batman number 6, the mask comes off. The Court of Owls isn't folklore, it's real. Worse, they've been pulling Gotham's strings for centuries, deciding who rises, who falls, and unleashing undead assassins called Talons whenever someone steps out of line. What I think makes the twist brutal is, of course, how personal it gets. The court isn't some random cult. It ties back to the Wayne family, with Lincoln March ever claiming to be Bruce's long-lost brother. On top of that, one Talon is revealed to be William Cobb, linked directly to Dick Grayson's family. So now, suddenly the conspiracy isn't about Gotham's elite in general, it's about Batman's own bloodline and legacy being tangled in a web of lies. And then finally comes Night of the Owls, where the court unleashes a whole army of Talons to retake the city. Batman isn't just fighting assassins. He's fighting the terrifying idea that Gotham itself was designed to breed monsters. To me, the court's reveal didn't just change the map of Gotham, it rewrote the city's DNA. No more mutants. Imagine if one emotional breakdown rewrote the DNA of an entire universe. That's exactly what Wanda Maximoff does in Avengers Disassembled and House of M. After losing her magically created children and having her trauma shoved under the rug for years, Wanda finally snaps. In Avengers Disassembled, she unleashes chaos that literally tears the team apart, heroes die, the mansion falls, and the Avengers scatter. Magneto and Professor X try to fix her, but the damage runs deeper than anyone wants to admit. Then House of M flips the table. Wanda reshapes reality into a mutant paradise where Father Magneto rules, and everyone gets their heart's desire. Cyclops has love, Peter Parker has family, finally, and mutants are no longer outcasts. For a while, it feels like a dream that might actually hold. Until it doesn't. As the illusion unravels, Wanda watches her family implode, which makes her deliver the line that makes Marvel history. No more mutants. Reality shatters in an instant. Millions of mutants wake up powerless. Governments panic, and the X-Men are left picking up pieces of a world that doesn't want them anymore. What's even worse is that Wanda isn't painted as a classic villain. She's both the victim of years of manipulation and the architect of one of the biggest tragedies in mutant history. The tension of sympathy twisted into catastrophe is what I think makes the twist unforgettable. One woman's grief becomes law, and the fallout shapes Marvel stories for an entire decade. Parallax. Imagine your city blowing up, your mental health collapsing, and then your coping mechanism is unaliving your coworkers and stealing the office battery. That's basically how Jordan's villain era in the 90s. Emerald Twilight took the once squeaky clean Lantern and flipped him into Parallax, a mass-murdering fallen hero who torched the core and scared fans so badly they still argue about it on forums. Fast forward a decade and Jeff Johns pulls up like a comic book paramedic with Green Lantern Rebirth. Instead of leaving Hal branded as the guy who rage quit the galaxy, Johns opens the body bag and says, plot twist, it wasn't him at all. Well, it turns out Parallax wasn't just a name, it was a giant space bug, made of fear energy that has been hiding inside the central power battery. When Coast City fell, the thing latched onto Hal and nudged him into full villain meltdown. Now suddenly his evil arc reads less like a midlife crisis and more like a possession horror. What's wild to me is how this twist cleans up decades of lore in one move. The yellow weakness that made Lantern's rings useless against bananas? Yeah, that was Parallax's fault. And on top of fixing Hal's reputation, Johns uses the reveal to launch the whole emotional spectrum idea. Will, fear, rage, hope becomes the backbone of Green Lantern stories for years. By the end, Hal is purified, the core is back, and fans get both closure and bigger mythology. Madelyne Pryor. Imagine marrying the love of your life, building a little family, and then finding out your wife was literally cooked up in a villain's science lab like leftover soup. That's the soap opera turned horror of Scott Summers and Madelyne Pryor. After the whole Dark Phoenix mess that we discussed earlier, Scott meets Madelyne, an ordinary pilot who just happens to look exactly like Jean Grey. Very fishy, but love is blind, I guess. They date, they get married in Uncanny X-Men number 175, and even have a baby, Nathan, in number 201. For a while, it's shockingly normal for an X-Men book. Baseball games, breakfast, the occasional awkward jealousy. It feels domestic. Then Inferno hits and the cracks widen. New York starts crawling with demons, haunted elevators, and a growing sense that something is way off. The real knife twist comes in Uncanny X-Men number 241 when Mr. Sinister strolls in and reveals the truth. Madelyne isn't just Jean's lookalike, she's a straight-up clone he engineered. Suddenly, years of marriage, love, and family get reframed as the villain's science project. What was once cozy domestic drama flips into manipulation, and Madelyne herself snaps. I mean, who wouldn't? Everything about her was fake, so crashing out was the only sensible thing she could do. Heartbroken and enraged, she embraces the role of Goblin Queen, cutting deals with demons and even planning to sacrifice her son to rip open a gate to literal hell. What makes it brutal is how personal it feels. A love story we watched grow turns out to be a setup, and Madelyne's spiral forces us to question what identity even means when your whole life was built in a lab. It's tragic, cruel, and unforgettable. Honestly, classic Scott Summers love life. Identity crisis. What if the deadliest killer in the DC universe wasn't a supervillain with lasers or doomsday plans, but somebody's jealous ex trying to win her man back? That's the gut punch of Identity Crisis, a murder mystery that starts small and spirals into something way uglier. It begins when Sue Dibney, wife of the elongated man, is found murdered in her home. Ralph Dibney's heartbreak sets the League on edge, and suddenly every cape is looking over their shoulder. At first, suspicion points towards Dr. Light. I mean, look at him. This guy just looks suspicious. But the deeper the heroes dig, the more skeletons crawl out. Years earlier, some Justice League members secretly let Zatanna wipe Light's mind after he attacked Sue. That decision, buried and never spoken of, hangs like a ticking bomb over everything. Then comes the real shock. Forensics point to shrinking tech, and the trail finally leads to Jean Loring, the Atom's ex-wife. Jean had been breaking into the homes of the heroes' loved ones, hoping to scare them so Ray Palmer could come running back to her. Instead, she accidentally killed Sue by messing with her brain at microscopic size, then torched the body to cover it up. I tell you this, the twist lands like a betrayal because the villain isn't some cosmic monster. It's grief, obsession, and loneliness weaponized inside the League's own circle. The fallout is more brutal than I thought. Batman grows more paranoid, the team fractures, and DC's world feels permanently scarred. For me, this story is messy, controversial, and years later, fans still argue about it. Clone Saga. Imagine waking up one day and finding out you're basically the knockoff version of yourself. That's the chaos Marvel dropped on Peter Parker in the 90s with the infamous Clone Saga. It starts creepy enough. In Spectacular Spider-Man number 216, a guy shows up who looks exactly like Peter but isn't him. Ben Reilly, the so-called Scarlet Spider. By the way, this panel really gives off that Spider-Man meme. Suddenly, Spider-Man comics turn into full-on identity crises. Is Peter the real deal, or is he just the backup copy? If you're confused, we're all too. By the time the trial of Peter Parker rolls around in Spectacular Spider-Man number 226, the DNA tests drop a bomb. Peter's the clone, and Ben is the original. From here, Peter is having an existential meltdown, while also trying to be a decent husband to Mary Jane, who happens to be pregnant at the time. Perfect timing, I guess. Meanwhile, Ben ditches the hoodie and takes up the mantle of Spider-Man in Amazing Spider-Man number 407, making fans wonder if this was Marvel's new permanent direction. What's your guess? If you say no, you're right. Of course, Marvel pulled the rug again. By the grand finale in Spider-Man number 75, the whole thing unravels. Surprise, the tests were rigged. Ben was the clone all along, and Norman Osborn was pulling strings from the shadows because who else? Peter reclaims the Spider-Man title while Ben dies a very messy death, turning him into the franchise's ultimate tragic detour. The Clone Saga still sparks debate because it dared to play with Spider-Man's very identity. Love it or hate it, it left fans dizzy, angry, and definitely glued to every issue. Flashpoint. Imagine waking up and your whole life feels like someone hit shuffle on reality. That's Barry Allen in Flashpoint. One minute he's the Flash, the next he's just some guy at his desk with no speed, a living mom who was supposed to be dead, and a world on fire thanks to Amazons and Atlanteans basically treating Earth like their personal WWE ring. Barry, being Barry, heads to Gotham for answers and promptly gets wrecked by Batman. Except it's not Bruce, it's Thomas Wayne. In this reality, Bruce was the one shot in Crime Alley, which turned Dad into a gun-toting, fuel-raged Batman and Mom into the Joker. Yes, you heard that right. The Waynes basically swapped roles in what I think is the worst possible way. The twist lands because it rips up Gotham's origin stories and says, what if Batman was driven by revenge instead of restraint? Thomas isn't about scary theatrics or detective work. He's all broken ribs and bullets. You mess with him, you're done. It shows how fragile the line is between hero and monster when grief is in the driver's seat. Meanwhile, Barry scrambles to fix the timeline before the world collapses completely. He eventually succeeds, but restoring reality comes with a price. Yeah, nothing's free, brother. Flashpoint doesn't just wrap up neatly. It launches the New 52 reboot. It means this alternate nightmare became the reset button for all of DC. And that's why I think the Thomas Wayne reveal still sticks. It's a Batman twist so good, the comics and movies can't stop revisiting it. Brand new day. What if your grandma got shot and the only person offering help was the literal devil with a contract? That's the nightmare Peter Parker walks into during One More Day. After Civil War leaves his identity exposed, a sniper's bullet meant for Mary Jane's Aunt May instead. Peter spirals, it's his Aunt May, who was there for him from day one, always supporting him through ups and downs. How could he live without her now? Desperate to save her, he runs to Iron Man and Doctor Strange hoping for some miracle science or magic. But every door slams in his face. Nobody can help, and May is slipping away. That's when Mephisto, of all people, shows up, looking like a creepy kid, but offering a deal with the kind of energy you only get from shady landlords. Here's the twist. Mephisto will heal Aunt May, but Peter and Mary Jane's marriage will be erased. Not broken up, not divorced, erased. Every kiss, every fight, every hard-won piece of love, gone like it never happened. And the worst part? Peter and MJ agree, sacrificing their entire history together to buy Aunt May one more day of life. The move honestly gutted me because it didn't feel like a win. It felt like a funeral for their relationship. It wasn't just Spider-Man losing something. It was us readers too, watching decades of storytelling vanish in one demonic handshake. We all watched, or read, Peter Parker growing up all these years like he's one of our sons. How could we not feel sad about this? Editorially, it reset Spider-Man back to a young and single status, launching Brand New Day. But emotionally, it left fans split. Was it brave storytelling or just narrative sabotage? Either way, the devil's bargain still haunts Spidey to this day. And if you're asking, isn't this like the fourth Spider-Man plot twist in this list? Well, yeah, I think it's common sense that Marvel writers like to mess up Peter's life in the most diabolical ways possible. So, yeah. Well, at least Aunt May is alive for now. Now, that's it for this one. If you like this video, hit that like button, subscribe for more, and ring the bell so you never miss a drop. Craving more stories from comics, movies, and beyond? Check out this video right here. Cheers, and see you in the next one.